Welcome back to the channel here today, guys, where I am delighted to say it is time again for the Champions League. It's amazing to return to this competition. This is where Barca have been firing this season, and coming up today, we're going to be talking all about our upcoming match against Benfica, the potential lineup that we could see from Hansi Flick, but of course we are also going to be keeping an eye on the very latest transfer news, with Eric Garcia's potential exit discussed. And what about Ansu Fatu? What is the current situation? And we're going to be talking about his stance and why he may be feeling that way right now. It is all on the way for you guys. I hope you're doing well. So let's do this. In terms of the big match itself then, coming live on Tuesday from Portugal. And like I say, it's a massive relief to be back in the Champions League. And even just saying that, I guess in a way it's good. I mean, obviously our league form is not good and we're not really proud of that right now. But in terms of the Champions League, I'm excited about the fact that we enjoy playing in this again, that we enjoy these kinds of matches, and that we are thriving in this competition. Right now, of course, only Liverpool are better placed in this year's competition. And I have to say, guys, when you're looking at the results that we've got in the Champions League this season, and not only the big ones, not only about the fact here that we've beaten Bayern Munich extremely comfortably, the fact that we beat Borussia Dortmund away from home, they're going to that kind of stadium and coming out on top. But look at the other results too. You know, we have played some of the so-called smaller teams in the Champions League, and yet here we've had no problem. We have been able to get the results, but in La Liga, somehow it's evading us. It really does boggle the mind to be looking at the contrast, really, in these performances. But one thing is certain. We get ourselves up for these games. We really do thrive in the pressure and the intensity of the Champions League. We're facing a team here in Benfica, though, who are quality opposition. They are currently 15th right now in the standings. They're in a playoff spot. And as you can see, they've beaten Atletico Madrid 4-0 earlier on this season. They only just very narrowly lost out to Bayern. They beat Monaco away. As we know, that is not an easy place to go. And they've had some really strong results in this competition here. So they are going to be a threat to us. They are going to test us and challenge us in a way that ultimately we want to be tested. We still want to pit ourselves against the very best teams. And of course, when you're actually looking back at recent history in this competition, Barca against Benfica, well, we did face them, of course, in the 21-22 season, which ended with Barca in the Europa League. You know, the less said about that, the better. This game right here, the 3-0 win for Benfica, that actually came with Ronald Koeman at the helm, one of his very final games at the club indeed, and rightly so, given the way we were playing. And you will notice there a certain Darwin Núñez scoring twice on the night there for Benfica. We did then face them in the reverse fixture that season. That then was under Xavi's leadership, and that, of course, was the big game for the group, where we had to win to get through to the Champions League knockout stages. Terrible weather conditions it was on that day, and Araujo thought that he'd scored the goal that did it late on, but it was disallowed there. A goalless draw, that saw us drop into the Europa League. And I do think it's important at times, guys, just to acknowledge here how far we have come in terms of this competition. You know, it wasn't that long ago, and it really wasn't. We can remember it well, where we were in the Europa League, where we were consistently dropping out and failing to find the results we needed. We are back now in the Champions League, but what's important is that we continue on this path. We continue building this momentum, and that goes right the way, of course, into the knockout stages. But in terms of one of the big decisions coming into this game, I think we've got to talk here a little bit more about the Iñaki Peña Wojciech Szczesny situation here, because actually I had a brilliant super thanks coming in from Edwin, big fan of the channel there, and ultimately he's been talking about which way we should go. Personally, he would go with Iñaki Peña as the number one for the remainder of the season, but what is in Hansi Flick's mind right now? Because I would say personally, right up until the Super Cup, Peña was the undisputed number one. And even Szczesny said, look, I understand why Flick is feeling that way. Flick only saw Peña as the number one option, but I think since the Super Cup there, the performance that we saw from Szczesny against Athletic Club, then of course against Real Madrid, he did get that red card, which was very unfortunate, but even Flick has admitted that since that Super Cup, things have changed in terms of the goalkeeping area, that things may be just about to be switched around a little bit, because there have been plenty of rumours here in the Catalan media, especially ahead of this game, that Szczesny could be the goalkeeper that plays not only the Copa del Rey games, but also the Champions League games this season right here. That is what is being reported in the media. So I am really interested to see, does Szczesny start here? And what does that mean? What does that signify there? Are we going to see Peña playing the league games and then Szczesny playing in the cup competitions? That kind of reminds me of when Ter Stegen and Claudio Bravo were at the club together there. Ter Stegen in his first season played the cup games. Bravo was the consistent man in the league. That's an interesting approach there. Does Flick believe maybe that Szczesny is a big-time goalkeeper for the big-time matches there, that he can be called upon and pressurised maybe in a way that Iñaki Peña can't? But what would you make of that decision, guys, there? If Szczesny was the man for the big occasion, was the man to be trusted in the Champions League, but Peña there, keeping control of the league games, is that a decision that you can get behind? Would you agree with it? And indeed, guys, just speaking right there about the cup competitions, this morning the Copa del Rey draw for the quarter-final there has been fully revealed, and these are the 4 games that we have to look forward to in that competition. It is going to be Valencia away for Barca, Real who head away to Leganés, who've actually been quite a tricky team to face for some of the top teams in the league this season. Thankfully, we avoided another game against Getafe. Atletico Madrid will be playing them at home, with Real Sociedad there against Osasuna, making up the final 8 in this competition. And guys, Valencia away, it's only a 1-leg tie, remember. This is not going to be a 2-leg thing. We are simply going to go to Mestalla at the start of February there. That's going to be a tricky game for us, even if they are struggling really in the league, labouring this season. But going to Mestalla is never ever an easy game, so we have that to look forward to there in the Copa. But if we do move back to the job in hand right here in the Champions League, guys, and if we look at the team maybe that started against Getafe there, the lineup that we started the game with, and of course we started well enough in the first 9 minutes, but we were not able to build upon that early lead. And I guess the question would be, well, what needs to change in this game there to change the performance, to change the result? But it's kind of difficult to judge that there when it's going to be a completely different game. You know, Benfica are not Getafe, thankfully. They're not going to sit very, very deep. They're not going to shut down all of the space and be an absolute nightmare to face. So it's very, very possible here that you could effectively line up with exactly the same team, and it could be a dramatically different night for us, guys. I wouldn't expect wholesale changes here. I would expect Flick to continue to do as he has been doing in the Champions League, going very, very strong. I would expect there the same defence, but Szczesny in goal, probably unchanged in midfield, although we did see Casado come off, of course, at half-time. Frenkie de Jong came on for the second half against Getafe. There is no Dani Olmo, of course, through injury, so I would say Gavi again will be deployed in that more advanced area. Yamal, Rafinha, of course, missed some big chances against Getafe, and Lewandowski, we need him to be firing. This is the Champions League. This is the place where he scored a century of goals. Can we see some more? Can we see some magical moments again on Tuesday in this competition? But indeed, guys, aside from the game coming up, that's of course very, very important to us, we do also have some interesting developments going on in the January transfer window here. Let's start by talking about Eric Garcia, who has been linked away from the club for pretty much the whole of January so far. You know, will it happen? Won't it happen? It seems to be as though Girona are the club with big, big interest in getting him back. Of course, he spent last season on loan at Girona. I was kind of surprised when we didn't really get that sale in the summer. After such a great season, Girona, of course, qualified for the Champions League. You felt as though that was the moment to cash in on Eric Garcia, because now we're hearing rumours of a 10 million bid coming in from Girona. And again, that kind of doesn't really do it justice there. You know, what he was showing last season on loan, the way that he played, how instrumental he was in their defence, 10 million, it's not really what you're going for. And Barca right now would like more than that. They're also kind of battling as well a little bit against Hansi Flick himself, because Flick ideally would like to keep Eric Garcia, especially because the board are basically saying to him, well, would you like to sell Eric? Would you like to sell him there maybe for around 10 million? Are we going to replace him? No, we're not. You know, we're not going to give you somebody else there in midfield, for example. We're not going to give you another defensive-minded profile. So Flick really here is probably thinking, I'm losing a player for what? You know, I'm losing a player here who has provided a bit of depth, who does provide me another option in an emergency kind of situation. I don't really want to be losing players if I can help it there. So Barca shouldn't just jump into a deal, especially if we're not getting the kind of money that we are looking for. But Eric Garcia right now, he is looking as though it might happen, but Barca ultimately trying to hold out for more. But when it comes to Ansu Fati, that is a whole different story right now. Because the thing about him is that he does not want to go. And that is becoming more and more clear now with every day. We've been waiting throughout January for Ansu kind of to open up the door to his exit. That is just not happening. He does not want to leave Barca. And it's a really tricky situation because obviously in Ansu's mind, this is nothing like what he expected his career to go like at Barcelona. When he broke through with all of that talent there, he was really looking like the next big thing. You know, we've seen this many, many times at the club. Players with huge expectations there, where in the end, it doesn't quite end up going the way you expected. It doesn't end up actually transpiring in the way that we all hoped. And of course that came because of a really bad injury and of course complications in the surgery there, which is heartbreaking for Ansu. But where does he go now? Because if he's saying, look, I won't leave, I've got a contract until 2027. It's a long deal. He is on very, very good wages. But what's his plan in terms of his footballing career here? He is not playing. And he's 22 years old. At this stage of your career, even with the injury problems, even, of course, with the setbacks that he's had, surely now you need regular minutes. You need to ultimately show my body can handle the demands. My body, again, can get back to playing regular football, to get that sharpness back. If he's not playing, that will never, ever come back. It's as simple as that. You have to get minutes there out on the field. That is not happening at Barca. Even today, he's back in the squad. He's been excluded for 4 games in a row. He's back now because of Dani Olmo's injury. But is he even going to play? Is he even going to be on the pitch for 1 minute in the Champions League? And I just think right now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I just want to know really, what is Ansu hoping to achieve here? Does he believe that he will get minutes as the season goes on? Does he think maybe that he can send a message out in training? Flick has asked for more. Flick has wanted more from him. Can he show more? Can he turn up there with more drive and more motivation to show Flick what he's missing out on? Is he just sort of waiting? Is he on that good contract? Is he thinking, okay, I don't really need to rush into my next decision? I think it's a really tricky, really complicated, really emotional situation, really, for Ansu Fati. I wish that we'd never ended up here. I wish that this was something that we never even had to sort of encounter. But this is the reality right now. This is the situation. And what do you think you should do, as a player, with the aspirations that he has as a professional? What would you do next? What would you be thinking if you were Ansu Fati right now, guys? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, let me know ahead of the big game against Benfica. What are your score predictions? And how would you line up if you were Hansi Flick? Let's keep this Champions League run going. Let's keep shining on the European stage. And I will see you guys very, very soon for all of the reaction. Thank you indeed for tuning in right here today, guys. And I'll catch you all soon. But until next time, as always, Visca, El Barça.